Welcome to another episode of In the Noon. Today we're going to have an amazing naked conversation with Sophia Trudvina. She's a being devoted to helping you practically see and be in this world and in yourself with daily choices and habits. I have one question that I want to start with is why do you do what you do?
I start my memoir by saying my reasons why, and one was that I had a lot of trauma and suffering and seemed to be more sensitive and have things harder internally than everyone around me, and so it made me a seeker of my own healing. And then the second thing I always say is I'm a scientist, and I devoted myself in high school to anything that showed me real data that was beyond what we knew, I would follow and be more accountable to that than community or people or the norms around me. So when my intuition opened in my late 20s, when I was begging for help from a toxic job and toxic boyfriend and, on the floor crying. And the next day I got all these signs and synchronicities that were telling me to quit my job and change my life that were beyond what I knew mathematically were probable. Like I was way too trained to know that I could dismiss these things all happening in one day. And
Yeah.
I decided at that point to live my life entirely by intuition as a scientist, being like, wait a minute, like if this gave me information that's valuable and I follow it, what happens next? And my memoir is called Life Beyond What I Know. What if you decided to live entirely by intuition? And it begins the first 4 years of that grand experiment that just got deeper and deeper and deeper until it became my entire life. And then I sprinkle on the end of my memoir, like after I wrote it and I went back and was rereading it, it took me 8 years to write. When I was finishing it, I said, there's a third thing that I quietly don't mention that I think is really an undercurrent for my why, which is that I love adventure. I just do. Like a mundane life where everything is cookie cutter and repeated has just never been for me. I've always marched to the beat of my own drum. I've always been the one that says, but why? I just finished a neuro degree from Harvard. And I think I have less of a default mode network than most, which is your personality structure in your brain. I don't get locked into an identity. I'm open to it being fluid when I get new information. And I think good scientists in history are the same. So
Yeah.
all of those whys.
I love that ability to be flexible, the ability to understand the beauty of hearing information and adjusting to it
Yeah.
is a way to have a life that's beautiful and not repeating the same year of your life over and over and over again.
Yeah. I had the same best friend since I was 13. I'm almost 33 now, or 53 now. And when we were trying to come up with the title for my memoir, she was like, just talk to me. I'm like, you've known me for decades. Like, what is the essence of me? What is this? And I just talked and talked. And then she said, what you just said. And I was like, what was it? She said, Life Beyond What I Know. And that was the name of my memoir. And it's like beyond what you could come up with,
Yeah.
whatever, beyond what you've already done. You can be 50, 60 years in, as my clients are, sometimes 70, 80, and they've only known, men that come into their life that are like this, or they've only known never keeping, going beyond this window or this ceiling of money or whatever. And I'm always like, there's beyond what you've known. I know we're decades in, but there's beyond what you've known, but you can't get there the ways you got to where you are now.
Yeah.
Even how you get there is beyond what you know. And you
Yeah.
have to lean in intuition and desire and trust that something will open that you can't see.
To live a life that gets you a different end, you have to be willing to go and take steps where you don't see where that foot's going to land. If
Yep.
you're trying to keep looking and seeing where your foot's going to land and know that it's going to be secure, you're going to keep walking in a circle.
Yeah. And I think that's happening to all of us more than ever with all the changes in the world. I think COVID shook us out of the norms in great and hard and debilitating ways. And it started a new normal of questioning and realizing that things can change really quickly. And so I feel like there's more of a landscape for my type of work since COVID than there was before. Plus, a lot of people are talking about intuition. They're talking about different structures and new structures as they see the old ones crumbling. I think it's like a new era where everyone's more open to the types of things that I opened myself to decades ago and sort of thought I would be alone forever in these interests and these passions and living this way. But now there's a lot of people that are interested. So that makes me so happy and excited.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful when you look in the world and you're expecting to see a whole bunch of negative, and you're looking in the world expecting to see people failing you. You see more of it when you start looking into the world for intuition, when you start looking into the world for joy, when you start looking into the world for people showing up like actual people and not just the mask or the costume that they put on.
Yep.
You get to start seeing it, and it's beautiful when you can
It's,
start seeing it in a larger facet, when you start seeing people just saying the weird thing.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like One thing that we can connect with, even if we don't know the how, or we have no examples of it anywhere at all, is to be able to feel what it would feel like to actually experience it. And my memoir covers a whole bunch of incidences where this happened to me, but it was like it just happened by accident. Like I would really be like, oh, it would be so nice to be in a warm, cozy bed. Like I do this huge motorcycle journey through America as part of the book, following intuition to find a long lost family member. And we get lost and we're in the rain and I'm just like aching for a very specific feeling of that we hadn't had the whole time we were there, of a house that's more cozy than I've seen, more warm, heated properly, like a blanket that's, thicker. And this is back in 2003. And that night we literally landed in one. And I was like, this is what I was feeling. I can't believe we've turned that way and found it and we chose it. And then it got further than that. Like there was a point in that motorcycle journey where we came up to the border between Colombia and Ecuador and didn't have paperwork to cross the border. And my friend just said, feel us on the other side. I've watched you. You can manifest. And I'm like, what is manifest? Like I didn't even know the word. And I
Yeah.
just pictured us and felt us how joyful I'd feel on the other side, just like baked with emotion. Like on the other side, we're driving or free. And we started driving towards the border and guns raised at us. Like we didn't slow down and we are supposed to. And soldiers started walking towards us. And I was like, oh my God. And literally beside me, a truck and a car hit each other. Just a tiny bit. I watched it happen. It was almost like the car just jerked over. And it was so loud that everyone ran past us and we just drove over the border. That's where it started. And then I made a whole life of like every time I go to see a new doctor in a hospital, I don't use a map. I just try to follow my feet and my feelings. And at each intersection, do I turn left or do I turn right, and turn that into a fine art now, and we use it in our company. The one I have with my best friend, we sit together and we feel the future field of our clients, our customers, people buying our products. And we're like, if we have this ingredient, what do they feel like? We're like, oh, a warm hug. They touch their skin. It's so soft. How about this ingredient? I don't really notice anything. So we actually go into every ingredient, what time of day you put them on, what the amount should be, how they mix with other ingredients. And then we go to scientific labs, the best in the world, and take what we innovated with downloads and our intuition and put it to test against science and with people. We have tons of people use it and give us their survey feedbacks and their experience and make sure that what we future saw and future programmed. Sometimes we're feeling into the future to get information. Sometimes we're programming the future with how we want to feel.
Hmm.
We want to feel everyone celebrating and dancing and feeling wrapped in love and with everything that we put out. So love is our biggest guide. We're always like, will they feel love? And if we don't feel that's true, we get a shrinking feeling, like our shoulders go forward and we collapse a little, we're like, no, that's not going to bring love to everyone. And then when we feel that it's on brand, which means love for us, it's like our shoulders go back and our spine goes straight. And, after working with hundreds of people in intuition now, I know that that's a universal sign for intuition. Your back goes straight and you sort of, because animals in nature, their backs are all straight. They're on the antenna.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing that so you have a science background, and a lot of times people feel like science and
Mm,
intuition are antithesized, kind of like
yeah.
being a median and believing in God. From my experience, intuition and science are not antithesis. I was talking to my daughter outside doing breath work at sunrise, and she was like, Mom, can you explain to me how a tree makes more tree and how a tree makes limbs and how a tree makes leaves? And I said, I could talk to you about what they know, but ultimately, they don't have a way to define how a seed knows what's up. They don't have a way to define how a tiny seed explodes into being roots and a tree base and a sprout and then builds from there. They don't, it's magic. It knows in the same way that you're not a chicken.
Yeah.
Like it,
Oh my
it
God. What a
just
great
is.
conversation with your daughter. That's incredible.
Yeah,
May
no, she's
everyone have these
fantastic.
conversations. Oh, that's incredible. The younger ones, my mom had a Montessori school in my house when I was growing up. So I think it's one of the reasons I'm also how I am is I was just with them for a decade for hours. If you're just with 3, 4, 5-year-olds every single day, you stay sort of open and unformed and in the moment. And so I just love the children. What I noticed over all that time and then I was a professor at the University of Hawaii for 10 years teaching sustainability and entrepreneurship, which were the passionate children or students. And what I noticed is every year, everyone coming in, being born is more evolved. Like the 20-year-olds are more evolved than I am, on and on, right? They don't have the same decades of life experience. So I bring that, but my team that are younger, they bring something else. and
Yeah.
we put it together and make magic together. But that thing that you explained to your daughter is where I've focused my life. So
Yeah.
my book, The Power of the Divine Feminine in Business, literally talks about life force energy being the creation force that has been squeezed out of the ethos of business, right?
Yeah.
So we don't allow that. We plan and schedule and structure so that life
Mhm.
force energy can't move through and co-create. So we designed our entire business. And when I say we, this is, me and my best friend of 26 years, Anya. Our company's called Sophania for Sophia and Anya.
Yeah.
The slurring of the name came before the company. We'd be like,
That
everything's
makes
going to be
sense.
Sophania. So, but we've like structured our company to allow that creative life force energy to actually create in our business and guide us and not plan and structure it out. And we
Yeah.
did that by having all women investors that allowed us to do things in a non-linear, intuitive way and not have to sort of hide that we're using intuition and then present the spreadsheet. We we can be like, intuition guided us to do this. Let's do the focus group. That went well. Now let's go into the science labs. So it's a dance, and we built the company on the pillars of intellect and intuition. And what your daughter is asking is for an answer, and you're saying, I can give you intellect, but there's a lot of intuition that hasn't given the answer to the things beyond what we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that's just amazing. And when we let her, the feminine energy, the life force creative energy that is known by cultures of mana, prana, chi, ki,
Mhm.
right? We're like the only culture that doesn't name that.
Yes. No, we just pretend and shove it in a corner being, "Shh, shh. No, we have a schedule over here. Do you see this beautiful schedule that we created? We're gonna stay with it no matter where it leads, and it's a wonderful walking in a circle, and we're just gonna stay in our pretty circle."
Yep. And this is when humans decided to dominate nature rather than co-create with nature. And it
Mhm.
often happens by anything that's dominated. Women have been dominated by men. So they're like, oh, now it's our turn to dominate. And I'm like, how about no one dominates and we co-create?
Yeah.
I'm always about the co-creation energy. There's power. We don't want all the feminine energy to come back in and squeeze out the masculine qualities in business. This was my PhD research, by the way. I did a
Yeah.
PhD on evolutionary business and what business would look like if it served people on the planet rather than exploited them. And
Mhm.
right.
Preach.
I mean, I was dying to know, and I interviewed lots of CEOs, read hundreds of sources, and I found out they're all doing the conscious ones being really successful are doing the same 7 things. And then I finished my PhD, and a few years later, it dawned on me those 7 things are all feminine principles. They're all feminine ways.
Yeah.
They're collaboration instead of competition. They're relationships over transactions. They're basically taking everyone that makes the wealth and getting a share of the wealth. Like
Mhm.
even my executive right hand, she takes 3.33% of every revenue I get in. And
Yeah.
so she's aligned, the power's aligned around the business as a ecosystem rather than as a hierarchy. I don't
Yeah.
dominate her to do what I need for my business. I empower her to use her gifts and be rewarded financially. So all of these things were the principles, the 7 principles that emerged. And then I realized they're feminine ways. And there's other companies that are too centered in feminine ways and don't have the structure and don't have
Mhm.
the discipline and don't. So it's not about squeezing out the masculine. It's about bringing the best of both forward. And so
Yeah.
we're all about the not the or, but the and we're not
Yeah.
about power over, we're power with. And
Yeah.
we have that in the structure of our company, Sophania. And as
Yeah.
much as the products are miracles, the way we do business is what we want to shout from the rooftops too.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It's essentially taking what you see in an ecosystem and you see in the world before we decided that rigidity and strength look like squishing another person. Instead, strength looks like how water and rock and how tree
Yes.
and
Yes.
mushroom and it all works together because they all need each other. You can't
Totally.
say that the skeletal system is more important than the nervous system because one
Exactly.
cannot be without the other.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And it's actually relatively recent in human history around the centuries of the witch hunts where differences started to be made into better and worse. There was
Yes.
actually time where just differences were just differences.
Yeah.
You're below me because you're different and you're above
Yes.
me because you're different. And if we change that, we change the world on every level.
I love when I look out into the world and I can see someone being weird and
Yeah.
quirky.
Yep.
And I love when I see somebody who likes something I don't like and who thinks something I don't like, not because it's always palatable. It's not because it's always easy to receive, but I love it because If everybody in the world was like me, how small would that world be? How would I get new thoughts? How would I get new experiences? How would I find new we aren't made better by having carbon copies. We are made better by divergence. We're made better by questions and sitting with things and getting uncomfortable and experiencing the full spectrum of
Mhm.
feelings.
I agree. I completely agree. And I feel like the whole notion of creation, we're such consumers rather than creators of information and content, et cetera, et cetera. And when we leave space for creation energy to come through us, like something that's unknown to emerge, we have a meeting every week where we just tune into intuition. And we do, Anya and I talk every night, and maybe 3 nights we end up going, well, let's go to the field and find out feel into the two options for whatever we're talking about. Like literally every aspect of the company and products have been tapped into in that intuitive field to see what the creative life force energy wants for us. And if we don't have an answer, we're like, let's see what emerges in the next few days. And all of a sudden, literally an organization with $1 million that wants to invest in exactly what we're doing will just cross our path. Like we were just like, what's our next move? We don't actually have the money for that at this point. But if we did, would we want to? And we'd be like, yes, well, let's see what happens. And the money comes like, so you can't go looking for that. You can't design that. You can be available to it, and I've devoted my life to how do you make yourself available to that? And I think the whole conversation around manifestation, I talk about this often, has gone in the wrong direction in my experience.
Mhm.
From decades of experience and working with, one of my other job besides being co-CEO of Safanya with Anya is I have worked for over a decade with hundreds of CEOs in 25 countries as an intuitive executive coach. And I
Mhm.
basically can channel detailed business plans and next moves for them and guidance on how to handle their leadership and their lives and their intimacy. So I've had a lot of exposure to the best guidance in the world for the top performers in the world in dozens of countries. And
Yeah.
having a social science PhD, I'm trained to look at social data and put together inferences and understanding. And what I see is that those that are at the top that are working with me and open to their intuition are the successful ones. They work in a way that everyone sees as magic. And it's
Yeah.
because they've figured out this manifestation thing in a way that works with the flow, where a lot of manifestation energy is that dominance energy again of I'm going to force the field to give me $1 million or give me a baby because I'm 30. And
Yeah.
so many of my early clients were just getting guided to be like, you're not supposed to be doing that right now. I'd say to someone, I'm getting, you're not supposed to be making 500,000. You're supposed to be making 350. And she said, well, that's what I'm making right now. And I said, so what's the problem? She's like, I want a bigger house. I'm like, I get you just got a house. And she's like, well, I did, but I want a bigger one. But why? You want to have a baby, I get. Well, I do. You have room for the baby, don't you? Yeah. It's like, and then by the end of this session, she's happy as a clam because she realizes she's supposed to be where she is. And that if she
Yeah.
takes on what it takes to make 500,000, she can't have a baby. So I think there's a reality that we live within real finite world with infinite possibilities, but you need to put your boat in the current if you're really going to be carried. And a lot of people are just forcing their boat into the river and saying, this is what I want. And then people are like, well, how do I know if it's on my path or not? Right. So
Yeah.
literally for that question, I wrote another book. It's called Living from Inner Clarity. It's like this really short handbook of 7 rituals. And if you do these 7 things, you will guaranteed be co-creating in your, well, I won't say manifesting, but I'll say you'll be co-creating of your
Co-creating.
creative self with the life force energy of nature and actually actualizing your soul plan. And it's literally like 7 rituals that took me decades to figure out. And now it's like this potent little book.
When you're in the ocean and you have a boogie board and you're trying to ride waves, manifestation is you are on the boogie board and you wait for the wave, right? Otherwise, you're just in the ocean and the ocean's great. Manifestation, I feel like right now and how people brand it is like you're trying to somehow wield the current to make your own wave
Yep.
and then being angry when it's
Yep.
not working out how you wanted it to.
Yes. Yes.
And you
Exactly.
get pummeled and you get like,
Yep.
I'm like,
And then
it,
you're angry at the universe or God, or you're just frustrated. And sometimes you notice like what happened in my early years. And again, I was learning all of this at the turn of the century when before there was internet, right? So it was just
Mhm.
like I was just really in the flow. There wasn't technology around me. I was just feeling all the energies, which really is a thing to unplug. There's a whole different reality outside of being plugged into technology all the time that I got to experientially learned this with, and I didn't have access to books or anyone talking about this. I was living it
Yeah.
as a scientist.
Yeah.
And you learn the subtle feelings you have when something's actually on your path and when it's not. And it's really
Mhm.
hard to do that. And that's why I developed the 7 rituals, because they're intention setting inside to be in line with the flow. But you can only do that if you've actually really cleared your energy. So that's why it's, clear your energy, access your higher truth, and live your freedom is the tagline.
Mhm.
It's, exactly how to do that, and it took me years to develop each one, but then they became so potent and they work for all my clients, and then I'm like, "Oh, time for a book." Like, so I love that, and I'm a surfer. I lived in Hawaii for 10 years. I lived on a surf break, and one of my first book I ever published was called Surfing Tsunamis of Change, a handbook for change agents that was all about sustainability back then, because I was a professor of that, one of the first. And I was talking about it for 5 years before anyone knew. They'd be like, "Sustain a what?" And I feel like I've been living consciousness and creation as a instead of manifestation for years, and now all of a sudden everyone cares about it and is talking about it more than ever. And I'm like, oh, good. It's kind of like sustainability. The wave is coming, and these books are I designed them to help you position your board on the wave
Mhm.
for the wave, and be peaceful if it's not coming, but be riding it if it does come. So to
Yeah.
your analogy, it's like literally exactly what I've devoted my life to, is how to ride those waves of change.
I totally get the person who feels like they know where the end of the path goes.
Yeah.
They want the thing over there. But I think the disconnect that we have is often the thing that you're reaching outside of yourself for. The reason why you're not getting that is simply because you still think the thing outside of you is going to give the answer when you can give yourself the answer.
That's one of the
And
reasons it doesn't come, for sure.
yeah.
Yep. Yep, for sure. I think that's brilliant insight, for sure. Other things, all I know is that if it's not coming, there's a reason, for
Mhm.
sure. And almost everyone goes to, I'm not believing enough, something's wrong with me, I'm not trying hard enough, I don't care enough, I have a block, right? And for a million readings I've done, sessions I've done, intuitive readings for people, it's been like, it's not your time. It's not your path. That's what society told you. That's what your family told you. That's not even yours to be. That's not even in your, that's not, there's no current for this.
Yeah.
Or it's not divine timing. It's not the right timing yet. Here's what you're supposed to be focused on. And I think it would take so much frustration away. And then people, of course, go, how do you know that? And I'm like, use these 7 rituals. Like, it always comes back to that for me. You, you'll definitely be able to know. You'll absolutely know. But if I could shout anything from the rooftops, it's that it is not easy and no one teaches it. And actually, if anything's being taught, a lot of it's misinformation about how to co-create with the energies of the universe, to be nature, working with nature, to be co-creators. You have to be your own nature first. And then you have to work with what nature really wants to have happen. And nature only wants things that are for the benefit of all and to benefit of your soul. And so if what you want isn't benefiting your soul, it's like, oh, make me so hot so I can get that guy. Okay, that's not going to work. But
Yeah.
make me, my most healthy self so that I'm vibrant. And that's different. You get a different result. All of these things. And you can sculpt your body, you can grow your hair. I was experimenting with all of this, and I asked the angels that I was working with when I was doing all these channelings for CEOs around the world, you're sending me all over the world to meet all these people and work with them. I'm downloading detailed business plans, but my skin's falling apart going from like Iceland to Italy in one day. Like, can you help me with that? And I literally channeled through typing an exact formula of 5 oils and essential oils for the scent with quantities. And I was just like, what, a formula? Like an actual detailed formula? I ordered all of this stuff and I mixed it, and it was the most intoxicating smell I've ever smelled. And then it was the best skincare I've ever. So I've only used that on my skin for almost a decade now. And again, I'm almost 53. And like, just, I just was like, well, how about my sleep? How about my triggers? How about me being anxious? How about me being worried about money? I'm using all my tools. Is there supplements that could support me? And the answer was
Yeah.
yes. And I got those formulas. And those are the formulas that Stefania is bringing to market. Like those exact formulas. And I tested and tried them during COVID with everyone I knew, and got to, really do good science, because they were all at home and not interacting with other things so much. And they could order it and then take it. And I had cognitive tests that they were doing every few weeks. And someone that couldn't remember their zip code was remembering their whole credit card number. Someone who had never sat in their garden, only was a worker bee, sat and read a book in her garden for the first time in her life in her late 40s. Someone that can never be calm when her son did that thing, all of a sudden totally understood why he was doing it, when hugged him instead of yelling at him. Like, all of the things changed. Go to sleep, stay to sleep through the night instead of waking up. Waking up looking younger was happening. People with cancer hair was growing back after a decade of not growing. I mean, all the things. And I was just like, this is something. So I just started giving it to my clients, and I thought that was it. And then Anya and I were sitting by a swimming pool in West Hollywood just after we had both moved here, ironically at the same time from different parts of the world after living in different areas most of our friendship, but
Mhm.
visiting each other often, maid of honor for her. She came to my wedding. We'd always visit each other. And we happened to move to West Hollywood at the same time, and we got a membership at the same swimming pool, and we're hanging out. The angels came to us and said, you're to form a company 50-50 and bring all these products to market for the world so that their nervous system and their sleep and their skin. And so that's how our company started. And we're almost on our 2-year anniversary of going now. So it's just like so cool to live this way on your own, but then help so many people do it for themselves, these CEOs
Yeah,
around the world, and then get guided to form your own company, but not just by yourself with your best friend.
yeah. And I love the fact that it's been an adaptive, right? Like the ways that you have come to the table and brought your intellect and your intuition and how you've applied it. It hasn't been this, I locked in, this is my box, I'm doing this thing. It's
Yeah,
a flow that's occurred because often the thing that we're doing is just for a season and it doesn't, but you have to be willing to do the scary thing and top boats. And you've been
totally.
doing that.
Oh my God, that's the amazing thing about both of us. Like, we didn't come from it easy. We both had lots of trauma. We both wrote memoirs about it. We both started doing the work before everyone else's, and we were the first ones to go to therapy that I knew of or even heard of. We were doing yoga since we were in our 20s. That's like, 25 years of yoga for both of us, like doing meditation and, all the modalities that we discovered over the years. We both were doing our own work, and we'd always be calling each other. This is what I discovered. How are you doing? This is the thing that's up. How is the natural childbirth? How is your therapist? Like all of that stuff. Do you want to meet up for a yoga retreat in the world? And so we know that the other can handle their lane. Like when stuff
Yeah,
comes up, I know that, Anya can handle and come to the table with what she knows, and I can handle and come to the table with what I know. We're both beyond ego to be able to say, I don't know. And both of us to say, I don't know. Both of us can kind of get locked into a thought. I can get locked into a sciencey way. She can get locked into a marketing way. That's how it's done. But then the other
yeah,
will say, like, do you have to do marketing that way? Like, couldn't you do this? She's like, oh, and she'll say, well, do you have to do a study that way? Can't you do this? And so we really tweak each other to cock our heads and go, wait a minute, we're both very, very strong in our own ways. And yet we'll hear each other's ways until they blend into a new way.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's because we're friends. Like, I trust her. She's not, if it was someone new coming with ideas that are so left field, and same vice versa, we'd have a hard time trusting that, I think, because they're
yeah,
so different than what we heard or know or what we thought. But because it's each other, anytime we're in a meeting and Anya pauses, I'll be like, wait, Anya's pausing. Let's give her a moment. She's like, something doesn't feel right. I'm like, well, we're going to just be quiet until you have an idea, or we're not moving forward until you have time to reflect on this. Like, we do the sacred pause. And a
yeah,
lot of people will just go, oh, I had so many times. They'll be like, I had a feeling about that, but everyone was into it and it's the way it's always done. So we just kept going. And we do not do that.
yeah. That's a beautiful way to actually integrate the things that people talk about. Something that sometimes makes me just like tilt my head is we'll learn these truths in therapy, or we learn these truths about how something applies in a weekend retreat or a book that you read. But it somehow gets left in the box of, "I read that, but it doesn't get integrated," or it worked in therapy and it felt so great in therapy, but I'm not gonna bring that honesty or body attunement into my relationship with another person. And there's this, like,
Totally.
disconnect, like, we have these barriers in our brain that we won't let it come over, these little
Especially in
containers.
business, especially in business.
Yes,
You're not
especially in
allowed
business.
to feel, you're not allowed to say in a boardroom when everyone's agreeing and plowing forward to go, something doesn't feel right. Can we stop and take a moment? Like,
Yeah,
there's no company that really celebrates that in my experience. Everyone I work with, even they are the most progressive people and they can't do that. I'm like, why don't you introduce the idea of that? Like when I had a consulting firm for sustainability in Hawaii, and I had 10 staff, and we had language of push and pull. So I'd give an idea or someone would come forward, we'd all be excited. I'm like, let's all stop and close our eyes and really feel if we feel a pull towards this or a push, if it feels like a push. And we'd all stop and one person would be like, it feels like a push to me. And I'm like, great, let's hear why. well, we actually did that last year if you think about it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, honestly, kind of, that's true. We're excited, but it's the same thing. And then we'd all feel into it again and everyone gets a push. And I'm like, yeah, it is a push. We're just going to end up doing the same thing. You're so right. So those sacred pauses, really create efficiency that the engineer in me loves. And I have a PhD in economics and business. Like I need all of those things, but it is the intuition that can best inform it. And people that I really respect that teach intuition to corporations, it's starting to become more. It makes me so excited that I hear people are intuitive coaches for executives and corporations. Like, great. It's for me, it felt like it was just me and I'm this, but it's so wonderful. More people are doing it. And she said, I used to work in corporate strategy and I would ask people after that idea that we all settled on, who knew that in their gut before we even went on the 2-hour conversation, and everyone raises their hand. So why not go into the room and say, do you feel a pull on this idea, and get everyone's feelings before you even talk about it? It is efficiency.
The way that you approach business, the way you're approaching life, the way you're approaching the world is with the deep-seated understanding, which comes from the idea of co-creating. There is abundance and there
Yes.
isn't. You don't have to worry about the fact that there isn't enough. You don't have to worry about the
Yes.
fact you're just allowing it is. And whatever that is going to be correct.
That's right. Yep. I love this. And so we're still entrepreneurs doing the traditional, this doesn't mean everything's perfect. And there were definitely times in our first year where we needed to raise over $1 million, where we would have dry spells, where we would, get the next funder and we'd have money for a while and then it would run out and we would have to sit there. And every single time I was like, there's a reason for this. We need to tune in and use all the tools to find out if it's just divine timing. And sometimes it was, we'd look at it and I'm like, we both have so much going on right now. Like we both were launching books, et cetera. I'm like, imagine we had the money to activate this part of our plan. How? And so
Yeah.
we'd go, oh, it's a sacred pause. Okay, great. And we'd come to that too. We'd use the tools and we'd both come to each other. We're supposed to be on pause. We're not doing anything wrong. Then the next month I'd be like, well, we're done all that stuff now in their space. What is it now? And we tune in. And I'm like, I really get that we keep thinking that this money is going to be used to pay someone to do marketing. But I feel like you're supposed to be doing marketing. Like you're supposed to be stepping into your genius on that. And then the money would come. And I'm like, okay, now we can enact it. We're not hiring anyone. You're doing it. Or I'm doing the scientific study for this. Like we were going to hire someone to do this, but I need to be more involved. And it would be like, we'd have something wrong with the plan and then we'd tweak the plan, but we wouldn't know how to tweak it until we used the tools. And
Yeah.
we'd go in and we'd, ask, or we'd use the 7th ritual in my book and be like, let's have it shown to us in this very specific way of asking that has it happen. And we both come back and be like, this is the answer. So we're constantly like, yes, there's a lull, but it's never because it isn't there. I always say,
Yeah.
oh, nature doesn't water a dead root. As in, if what it's supposed to be filling and providing for and giving abundance to is dead, it doesn't do that. So if we don't have life in it, in that we have an idea that's wrong, it's not going to bring the resources for that idea that goes against us and our plan and the rest of life.
Yeah.
But if we have an idea, like I'm telling you, when I first had this and she said to me, I think you're supposed to start a business. I ran out of money one month personally for something. I can't remember what happened. It was when I first moved to LA and I had to 10x my revenue to live here the way I live here. And it had to happen fast. And I didn't have the money right away, but I'd already signed an apartment lease that I knew I was supposed to be in, because I said, if that apartment ever becomes available, I'm going to move in. And it became available the next day after 6 years. And so I was like, I'm supposed to do it. It was my 50th birthday. I'm like, I'm supposed to do it. But when I moved in, it was like 5 times more rent than I'd ever paid for this penthouse ever. And I had to manifest it. And I'm like, but I know I'm supposed to be here because it wouldn't have opened up right after I said it. So there must be some way. And she said, I think it's supposed to be this business idea for these products. And I was like, interesting. Because I started on my own and she was just best friending. And then by the swimming pool, we got guided to do it together. So there was some months where it was just me going to do this, but she was my friend helping me. And I
Yeah.
said, well, for me to do it and really focus on it, I would have to have $25,000 to support me the next couple of months and to do the financials and the pitch deck and do the research as a company. I've never thought of it that way. The middle of the night, I woke up and I remembered I had clients in South Africa who had paid me by Bitcoin years ago and put it in a fund for me. And I called them and I said, I think it's time for me to call that money forward. And it had grown to $19,000. And then the next morning, I got a $6,000 consulting client. And when we were driving to the gym, I held up my phone and there was $25,000 in my bank account the next day.
That's
So
amazing.
nature waters a live root. I was supposed to do it. And that
Yeah.
$25,000 was real. I would need that to do it. And
Yeah.
so the money came.
I have a question for you to sit with. In a world where someone's listening to this and they're all enthralled with the way that you live life, right? But they look at their life and they see dead ends and they
Yeah.
see frustration and irritation at things not happening. And how would you go about talking to them about, in your process, how you stopped and go, okay, let's assess? Was
Sure.
there ever frustration in that for you?
All the
And how
time.
did you deal with that?
Yep. There was times, I mean, I'm over 20 years into living entirely by intuition as part of my every moment of every day, right? So I would say there was times where I was so angry and frustrated, I shut it down. I'm like, I'm not listening to this anymore. I'm only going with what my mind says. And then, I get slammed and I have to use it again. So yes, I've been through all of this, which is why I wrote this book, Living from Inner Clarity. It is literally the answer to all of that, but I will sum up some key points from it, which
Yeah.
is that and again, I really respect the younger people because of their more evolved souls coming in. But then I also really respect age because there's things that only I could have learned through actual time. And the things that I learned through time are that when I look back on every single time I was frustrated and it didn't work and I thought it wasn't working and I had been lied to or led down the wrong path or that I had been denied something or I'd done it right, but I wasn't getting that result. It wasn't fair. All of those things. I look back on them and I can see all why they were a dead root. Like I had been really wanting something that was for the wrong reasons, or I was forcing something in the wrong time, or if I'd gotten that thing, I would have done all this with it instead of what happened instead, which was so much better. And literally, it took me about 17 years of so much watching the data every single day and seeing it over and over again, where I finally just accepted every single thing is happening for me and not to me. And the
Yeah.
second get out of, there's some reason this is happening for me, even though, I mean, literally at times I was like, my legs stopped working, my back had given out, my brother died in a motorcycle accident and I miscarried like all in a couple months, right? And I was like, there's no way this is happening for me. But looking back, it was all happening for me. I ended up manifesting a miracle back surgery that made my life way better after it than it had been before. My brother and I started connecting from the other side, and I got to see him every day rather than just on our phone calls. I mean, all of these things. And not having a child in this life is literally the thing I'm most thankful for in my 50s, that I never had children for myself. So,
Yeah.
right. And at the time, it was the worst things you could ever think could ever happen to a human all happening at the same time. So when you've actually lived through those cycles and come out the other side and seen, the next time it's really bad, you're like, I can't just go to the victim place again. I've been shown
Yeah.
too many times experientially that it is happening for me. My only goal is how can I shorten it from the time of the painful experience to what it means and how to. So that's where that book comes in, where it's really about getting clear and not going to the drama and the victim. And there's a couple rituals just for that.
Yeah.
And then there's a way of really tuning into the answer that you want, which might not be just, I mean, sometimes I've been like, okay, I need to move homes. What's my next home? What's my next home? And it doesn't come. And I'm so frustrated. I need to live somewhere. And then I'm like, oh, right. Don't just ask for the thing. Ask for how you want to feel. And I would say, oh, I want to feel warm and wonderful in my home. And I ended up living traveling the world for 7 years in 25 countries, not having the next home, but having hundreds of homes. So the book describes how to get really clear about what you want to feel and how to ask for it, and then get those signs and answers and get it.
Yeah, I love that. Hard situations they can make for a better life, or they can make for you digging into the same patterns you have. You're the
Sure.
person who gets to make that choice. And anybody who's listening to this, I hope that they're making the choice towards trying to learn that lesson faster on how to see how they gained from it.
Oh, I
But
love
it
that.
is, yeah, it is a hard thing though when you're in like, I got left 9 months pregnant with my fourth kid,
Ah,
and I thought that was gonna like, and it didn't feel like a gift.
no,
It did not.
no, it does not.
Now, best
Now?
present I've ever been given, hands
Sure.
down.
And you don't
Now.
know it at the time.
No, no, at the
And it
time, it was
really only is with
catastrophic.
those experiences that you start to realize when the next bad thing happens, you don't have to wait till years on the other side to know, wait a minute, even though I can't see it now. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you've noticed this because you've had some big ones too, is like amount of pain and hardship it is directly proportional to how much better it is afterwards.
Yes, how much joy you can feel and how much peace you can feel and how much if you aren't willing to fully experience your world, you cannot fully experience your world.
Totally. I'm so glad we're all living more aware now. Like we're
Yeah.
all living and sharing more so with all of the ways that we can share, like especially this type of discussion. I think it can help really accelerate this as a normal way of living.
Lies in the same way that we've seen patterns of behavior about what women do or what men do or what
Sure.
business is like, actually normalizing being a human and functioning in flow.
Yes. Yes, I love all of this, which actually, I'll just conclude with this. It makes me excited about our company, Safanya, because I was like, why are we being guided to a company? I love what I do with all the leaders I work with. I don't
Yeah,
need to have my own company, but I couldn't deny that I wanted everyone to have the products and have
yeah.
what they do for you because they did so much for me and everyone. But what it is really is the community is like the modern version of a community is a company as a brand. And we,
Mhm.
in every single box we put on every single box and every single bottle, it's infused with the frequency of love is printed on it. And our
Yeah.
goddess council of all women investors meet every new moon and full moon for an hour to do spiritual uploving together. We go into intuition, we ask questions, we share what we get. They're the same for, it's beautiful. And we send love to every molecule of every single product. And then people feel it and they feel that feeling of friendship. Like when we felt into the company, I was like, it's like everyone gets the feeling of a best friend. Like, and people have told me like, I just put the body oil on after my dog crossed or my mom crossed and I felt so hugged and loved and held. Or I, took the morning tonic and now I don't have this problem with my family. I can meet it with my full self, my higher self. It's like, it's not products, it's the results that it gives. And it's the community of that. And what people are saying, well, if I didn't think this could ever change, like I didn't think I'd ever not be upset with my child over this, or I didn't think I'd
Yeah.
ever be able to sleep through the night. And now that it can, or my, menopause acne reversed, now that that's possible, what else is possible?
Yeah.
And people are starting to talk about that, and it's starting to become kind of like the Safania vibe of possibilities beyond what you know, and you experience it. And now we're getting ways that people can, videotape and share in our socials and these types of things to share like there is possibilities. And I think that we could never make that the norm if we didn't have a really successful company.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that you've pulled in all of the principles and ways you lived your life and actually applied it into the form and the container of business, knocking down the sides and just saying, no, it just is. That's
Yes.
really beautiful. In a
Beautiful.
world where someone's listened to this, obviously they have the products or whatever, but where would they find more of you? I'll put all the links in the bio.
Okay, great. So the drsofiatrivena.com. So exactly as you see it on there. It's also the same thing for my socials. Instead is Doctor with a DR and then Sophia PH Trivena. And then Safanya Wellness on Instagram and that's our website. And you can shop and see everything there and lots of testimonials before and afters and all the science is listed there. I personally do all the science parts that are written there. It tells you exactly how skincare works and why the oils are different than moisturizers and how they replace them and why. And so if anyone likes that kind of geeky stuff to really understand why cold pressed and organic and the oils is better and bioavailable and, identical to the lipids in our bodies, all that good stuff is all on there. And then there's also community, the part I was talking about before, which I think is just so beautiful. So
Yeah,
SophaniaWellness.com and also on Instagram. And so it's
perfect.
Sofanya.
Wonderful. And I'll go ahead
Yeah.
and again put it in the description below for anybody who's listened to this and feels encouraged or edified or can think of anybody who'd be bettered by listening to this. Please share it
Awesome.
because the whole point of what we do here is for you